when you can be the recruiter, you have your, making this number up, 100 prospect accounts that are perfect fit. You're talking to them, you're engaging with them. Not, I want to work this job with you right now, but where are you guys headed over the next year? How can I help? And you can start to pick up those insights. And then if you truly are a niche recruiter where you've identified the top 1,000 Salesforce, SAP consultants, when you have those relationships with those people, you can also understand who's passively looking or what might their clamps be that you and I have talked about ad nauseum at this point on the podcast, understand like what would the motivator be to get them to come over for that. And when you can sit at that intersection, that's a beautiful spot where you can be, where you're proactive with it all.
Initiating becoming a hiring machine sequence in 3, 2, 1.
Everyone, it's Sam Keenley, and welcome back to Becoming a Hiring Machine. This is the show dedicated to fixing recruitment by going beyond saying what needs to change and instead teaches you how to make that change. Today, we've got a great Tactical Tuesday episode ahead of us, but before we get into that, I want to tell you a little bit about the show. Essentially, we have shows within the show here. Some days we have interviews with industry thought leaders and others who are shaking up the space, while other days we cover trending topics. Stop by every Tuesday like today for a Tactical Tuesday episode where we go deep on how to do something that's going to help you drive better results in your day-to-day. And lastly, you'll get a mic drop episode from Matt every now and then where he shares something that he's been thinking about within the recruitment space and wants you to know. As a reminder, if you like the content that we share here on the show, make sure that you subscribe for more. All right, we are a few weeks into our series on all things account-based prospecting, ABP for short, and today we're going to build off of some of the expert advice that were provided by Anthony Peary back in episode 214 on understanding your niche and the messaging for it, and Sydney Waterfall in episode 216 on how to acquire and organize the data you need to execute. So today we're going to get into that fun tactical execution. More specifically, what outreach should look like to your prospective clients. So we have our list of perfect fit prospects that are a match for our services. Now, how do we go about engaging them and starting to develop the relationship that will lead to them becoming a client before long? So for this episode, we had to have our queen of outreach jump back in to discuss this with us. So Vivien, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Oh yeah. So this is a fun one. A lot of people think about outreach as it's more reactive in nature. I see you're hiring. I saw this job post on your website or job board. So we're going to talk a little bit about how that works from an account-based prospecting approach, but also how you can shift from being reactive to proactive with it a little bit more. So we've got our list. Maybe we want to come up with a fictional customer here to make it easy to kind of put yourselves in their shoes to think through. But say, I'll let you define any criteria you want, but say you're using account-based prospecting, you've identified your list of perfect fit prospects. How are you going about messaging, communicating, getting in touch with these different individuals at the organizations?
So the best way to do it is kind of like to split it a little bit. There's going to be bulk outreach that you can do towards a specific target, and there's going to be something where you have to get a little bit more one-to-one. It also depends on whether you're doing it proactively or reactively. So with the one kind of like bulk type outreach, this is going to be to the HR leaders, because ultimately HR still has to wiggle you in. You have to work through all of that. And if you are a niche recruiter, which you really should be, highly specialized, that's the best way to go about it. That way you can present yourself as, hey, I'm already in this. I have like a never-ending evergreen pipeline of really amazing candidates. These are very technical roles that I know eventually you're going to need to fill. I know your number one metric is time to fill and how happy those hiring managers are. And I know that these very technical roles are sometimes out of your depth. Please don't say that to the hiring manager in this way though. But kind of say, hey, I know these are very like time consuming, intensive, very technical. More than happy to help. I don't want this to be something that negatively impacts your internal metrics like time to fill, time to submit. Because internal HR teams are always evaluated based on time to XYZ. And with very technical, specialized roles, this is where it just goes off the deep end and it's really bad. And this impacts their metrics negatively, which they usually want to avoid. So if you already know this, you can start wiggling your way in and be like, hey, no pressure. Not saying you should hire me today, but if you ever need these types of specific roles, please keep me in mind, and I will pop back into your inbox once in a blue moon unless you tell me to stop talking to you because you have the perfect internal recruiter that can manage it all. I'll let you be, and that way at least you can get a response.
So yeah, that's a great way to open it again. It's like speaking to what can you help with. You're not stepping on toes, but I understand your pains, what you're probably struggling with. I'm not here to take your job. It's more when you're coming across these unique roles, these niche roles that you don't like working, they take super long. Like, this is where a partner like me comes into play. Okay. So that's a perfect one to few type play, because again, you're only doing this for your perfect fit prospects. You're not spamming the entire market with it. This is your ICP, your ideal customer profile prospects. You mentioned going a little bit more one-to-one. So how are you thinking about the one-to-one approach within this?
So this would be for hiring managers, and there's the proactive and the reactive approach. The reactive one, that's the easiest one. It's you see that there's a job posting, and through the job posting, you can usually tell what problem does this particular company, department, team have that this role is supposed to help fix, solve. And if you can find a way to pitch the candidates that you have for this in a way where it addresses the exact problem, how they addressed it, and the results that they got, this is going to be really exciting for hiring managers, because that's exactly what they're looking for. And if you're telling them, hey, I have a candidate that has done XYZ, dealt with it this way and got these results, this is where essentially you're going to get their attention. They're going to want to talk to your candidate. So that's the easiest way, but it's very reactive.
Yeah, it's reactive, and it's ABP in that it's one-to-one. You know, you're going after a specific account, but it's very similar to the MPC approach that many already follow. So when you do that, you know that it usually works because it is so tailored and customized, but you also know you're going to have a lot of competition because they're reacting to us. They see this job post. They see the post on the website for it. So you're probably one of at least a handful of people vying for their attention in that job. But where, I like that you said proactive earlier, like this is where you can kind of win before all of that, and it eliminates the competition beforehand because they're not even going to market or possibly having to post it externally, or if they do, you're already engaged. So yeah, tell me about this proactive approach.
So with a proactive approach, this is essentially where you're always working on some kind of rec. You're working with hiring managers within that industry. So you're hearing what they're currently going through, what their trends are, what their teams are dealing with, and what this particular team's needs are, and the problems that they're trying to solve with this particular new hire. You can get all of that kind of like in there. And the way that I would package it is more so tailored as like a little newsletter to basically be in touch and be like, hey, this is what I'm hearing across the industry. I know you're not looking for any roles or anything like that. I just want to stay in touch to kind of like have a really good pulse on what's going on, because a lot of times you're not going to get some kind of open rec or find out about anything until you're actually on a call. And sometimes if you're a non-threatening kind of recruiter, hiring managers are going to talk to you just so that they can hear, okay, what is the candidate market like? Like, hiring managers, they have some deliverables. They get them ahead of time, so they kind of know, okay, I'm probably going to need to start looking for somebody with XYZ qualifications for this project that is coming down in Q4. When should I start hiring about this? So just by default, about 15 minutes into the conversation, they're going to be like, so have you been talking to any like SAP consultants that have integrated into Workday lately? You know, what's that like? Like, what are you hearing these days? And suddenly you're like, oh yeah, you know, like I've been hearing XYZ. Like, why do you ask? You know, like I can keep an eye out for something, like what's going on there. And suddenly they're spilling the beans about something that might be coming down the pipeline. And suddenly you're getting the company insights as to where the company is going, what potential departments might actually be interested in working with you that have like a different deliverable, but very similar with people that need the kind of skill set that you have. And so you're basically just making friends, and through that you're finding things out. And sometimes it can be like, hey, I'm actually looking for somebody that is an accountant, and that might not be your specialty, accounting and bookkeeping. But if you have a friend in the industry that really specializes in accounting and bookkeeping, you can make a reference. If it's a solid working relationship, you're just solidifying this. So you're not losing to the competition, but you're really standing out as a subject matter expert. Because then if you start diluting your services in your area of expertise, unless you're like a really big kind of recruiting agency that genuinely has different like teams and departments within that they specialize in, then it's going to get really tricky. But that way you're depositing a lot into the favor bank, and that's ultimately what you want to do as a recruiter.
I love this play. Honestly, I've thought about it so much because this is something I've noticed I do naturally just with like peers of mine. When I hear, you know, someone who might be a marketer, they think about, I'm passively looking, or, you know, I'm not going to be here forever. When you can be the recruiter, you have your, making this number up, 100 prospect accounts that are perfect fit. You're talking to them, you're engaging with them. Not, I want to work this job with you right now, but where are you guys headed over the next year? How can I help? And you can start to pick up those insights. And then if you truly are a niche recruiter where you've identified the top 1,000 Salesforce, SAP consultants, or whatever that example was, where it's very technical, and you have those relationships with those people, you can also understand who's passively looking, or what might their clamps be that you and I have talked about ad nauseum at this point on the podcast, to understand like what would the motivator be to get them to come over for that. And when you can sit that intersection, that's a beautiful spot where you can be, where you're proactive with it all. It's like before they even go to post a job, it's like, oh, you're talking about this. I've actually got someone who I think could be a perfect fit. You could make that connection before anything has to go and be published, get approval, or connect them with the HR manager. But that's the really unique spot that I think so many niche recruiters are taking advantage of right now, because they are going so deep into those relationships on both sides that that's giving them the leg up over the people that are trying to spread themselves across everything but are reactive as a result.
And a lot of times they'll probably even get a heads up about, hey, I'm about to start looking for somebody to fill this particular role. So they will probably actually start being able to get candidates sourced and pre-vetted, so that by the time the rec officially comes through, they get the approval to give it to an external hiring agency, you can submit people the same day. You don't have to start sourcing that particular day. And if you're very niche, then it's not a waste of time to proactively start sourcing, because you're talking to these kinds of candidates all the time. So you're just basically going into your database, you're kind of like putting your hand into like the candy basket and just like fishing a couple of candidates out, and are like, all right, these are it. There you go. So there's a lot of benefits to that. And the other thing that I would say is that a little bit like pivoting back to the reactive approach is, yeah, everybody's going to start going after that hiring manager because there's an open job posting. But if your emails suck, then that's really you're not competing against anybody. But if your emails are really good and the content really resonates, then the competition self-eliminates. I've been noticing that I'm getting a lot of emails about like, hey, I can help you find people at Loxo that can work for you, blah, 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 blah. And they're all very like selfish in terms of like, I have people for you, as opposed to, hey, you guys are hiring for XYZ roles, and I know that you're super busy, and here are a couple of people. These are some of their accomplishments. They're anonymous. If these sound like candidates that you would like, let me know. Happy to talk to you, or something like that. I've never gotten an email like that. So they keep on being unread or deleted. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, it's the ability to stand out is easier than ever amidst the seas of just like noise, AI garbage, everything else that's out there. So yeah, this will be fun to see how it all shakes out. So I think this was a good part one, and what will be our mini series that tacks along with this August account-based prospecting series. So yeah, stay tuned for next week when we get more tactical and in a different aspect of it. So appreciate you coming, as always, Viv, to join me for this.
Anytime.
All right. Well, as we wrap, Becoming a Hiring Machine is a production of Loxo. If you like this episode, please make sure that you go and check us out in our website, loxo.co/podcast. We have full video episodes available on YouTube. If you ever have questions, send them our way, podcast@loxo.co. And lastly, if you did love this episode, please make sure to leave us a quick rating in your podcast streaming platform. It takes you 3 seconds, and it's going to help other recruiters like you to find us. So, all right, everyone, that's the show. It's another great Tactical Tuesday episode with Vivien. Till next time, bye, y'all.